The traps are one muscle that can make a huge visual impact on your physique. Just compare someone with well-developed traps to someone with underdeveloped traps. The lack of trap development will make the individual appear less muscular and in some cases even far less masculine. Now most guys will hear traps and immediately assume that the solution is heavy shrugs. And although they are a viable option, doing shrugs exclusively is a surefire way to neglect your other trap muscles. To understand which exercises to focus on, we first need to understand the basic anatomy of the traps. The traps are made up of three heads: the upper traps, the mid traps, and the lower traps. Together, they form a diamond-like shape on your mid-upper back. The primary function of the upper traps is scapular elevation, or shrugging your shoulders upwards. Contrary to popular belief, the upper trap fibers do not run up and down. Instead, they run diagonally. That means maximum tension is placed when force is applied at an angle. Then we have the mid traps. These are responsible for scapular retraction or pinching the shoulder blades back together. Finally, we have the lower traps. These are responsible for scapular depression or bringing the shoulder blades down. One characteristic not talked about often is that the lower traps are crucial for your posture. Most guys with forward rounded shoulders have weak lower traps that need to be activated and strengthened. This in and of itself keeps your body healthier, freer from pain and injury, and can help you get in the proper positioning to perform compound movements. Now that you understand the basic anatomy of the trapezius muscles, let's get into the top 5 exercises for building bigger traps. Exercise number 1, deadlift. If there's one powerhouse movement that hits the traps and back as a whole, it's the deadlift. Since it's a multi-joint movement, each part emphasizes a different area of the traps. At the very bottom, your torso is mostly horizontal, so your mid-traps activate in order to prevent your back from rounding. In fact, the mid-traps are almost directly in the line of force. Just take a look while I perform the deadlift. The bar pulls directly down, so my mid-traps apply tension in the opposite direction. Then, toward the end of the concentric portion of the rep, the upper traps become more active. In fact, research from the University of Gothenburg suggests that activation of the upper traps is low at the bottom, but as the bar is raised above the knee, the upper traps are activated to a greater degree. This is why you may notice that powerlifters or strong men who deadlift a lot tend to have impressive traps. But since deadlifts target the upper traps more towards the top, there's another solid exercise that can emphasize this area even more: the rack pull. The reason this variation is so effective for building the upper traps is quite simple. If you're not spending energy lifting the bar from the floor, you'll be able to further load the portion of the deadlift that activates the upper traps the most. You'll notice that the heavier the weight, the more the upper traps are generally activated. The upper traps isometrically contract to resist your arms from being pulled out of their sockets. This makes the rack pull an ideal option since you'll be able to place the most amount of tension on the upper traps. Exercise number 2, farmer's walk. The second exercise is the farmer's walk. In a similar way to how deadlifts hit the traps, the farmer's walk forces the traps to resist the downward force of the weights you're carrying. This isn't just going to hit your traps, but also some other muscles, especially your forearms. You can do this with dumbbells, a trap bar, or even with an actual farmer carry setup if your gym has the appropriate equipment. While you are definitely going to be lifting heavy weight, it's best you start with something slightly lighter. To track progress, simply note how many strides you take, the distance you travel, or even how long you walk for. Just ensure you're increasing one of these variables over time to keep progressing. If your forearm strength is limiting you, I recommend that you use chalk or wear straps. The movements we've covered so far hit the traps isometrically, meaning they're activated without the traps shortening and lengthening. Next, we're going to discuss movements that take the traps through a dynamic range of motion. Exercise number 3, shrugs. Because the main function of the upper traps is shoulder elevation, it's no surprise that I'm including shrugs. That said, research has proven that having your arms in a degree of abduction rather than directly at your sides leads to a greater degree of upper trap activation. That is why I recommend a snatch grip barbell shrug where you're leaning slightly forward. Although the exercise is quite simple to perform, there are a few mistakes you should avoid when performing a barbell shrug. For starters, gripping the bar at shoulder width as you would on a traditional shrug while standing completely upright is going to limit the amount of upper trap activation. Another classic mistake is failing to control the weight on the eccentric portion of the lift. Sure, this may allow you to lift a lot more weight, but you're far better off using a weight you can handle in order to maximize muscle growth while reducing the risk of injury. To ensure you're maximizing your results with this movement, make sure you're gripping the bar at a width where it sits right at the top of the pubic bone when standing upright. Lean your torso slightly forward and shrug the bar up and inward as if you're trying to touch your shoulders to your ears. Control the weight on the way down and initiate the rep once your arms are completely straight and the traps are fully lengthened. Exercise number 4, barbell row. Whereas the first few exercises focus on the upper traps, the barbell row is going to target more of the mid traps. Now, there are a couple of ways that the barbell row is usually performed. One way is by pulling the elbows to the hips. Although this can still hit the mid traps, it will place a lot of emphasis on the lats. The second way is by flaring your elbows out a bit. You can even test this yourself right now. First, retract your shoulder blades with your elbows close to your body. What you'll notice is that there's a lot of tension on your lats and very little on your mid-upper back. Now, retract your shoulder blades again, this time with your elbows flared a bit. You'll notice that the tension has shifted away from the lats and onto the mid-upper back. Just be sure to focus on pinching your shoulder blades back. Otherwise, you won't be hitting the traps nearly as hard as you think. Exercise number 5, Y raise. The final exercise for bigger traps is the Y raise. Unlike the other movements, this one emphasizes the lower traps. Weak lower traps are notoriously responsible for poor posture since most people completely ignore them. Set a bench at an incline and lay with your belly on the backrest. Now, pinch your shoulder blades back to create scapular stability. Then, raise your arms into a Y position while keeping your shoulder blades pinched as much as you can. Personally, I'd recommend you start with no weights. Once you get the hang of it, you can add 2.5 pounds and work up from there. So, there you have it. My top 5 exercises for building bigger traps. Did you find this video helpful? If so, click the like button below as it'll truly help out the channel. Also, if you're looking to take your workouts to the next level, grab a bottle of my science-based pre-workout supplement, Turbocharged. Packed with scientifically proven ingredients, all clinically dosed, you'll experience all the performance benefits without the jitters or crash. If you want to learn more, head over to musclemonsters.com/supplements or click the link in the description below. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe for more videos and don't forget to turn on post notifications so you don't miss the next one. Peace.